The most common forms of fraud in government would generally revolve around expense abuse, perhaps bribery, corruption, breach of fiduciary duties, those type of manners. Well, governments would be most vulnerable in the areas where, firstly, you don't have proper segregation of responsibility, where there is a breakdown, a fundamental breakdown in the internal control. And that can often happen because people are cutting back on the number of people that are in the department. That's often the first sign. Secondly, where governments don't have clearly defined rules and regulations with respect to how expenses are handled and or how the tendering process works, and other work where people may be exposed to people attempting to sell work to the government and they're not clearly defined roles and responsibilities. Well, I think the primary role is for them to understand what are the existing internal controls, where are the weaknesses, and identify how you overcome them before you have a problem. In other words, don't wait for it to happen and then wonder why. Take a proactive stance and address where their vulnerabilities and risks are. In so many ways today, whether it's banking or fraud, it's all defined by risk assessment, and municipalities and other government agencies would not be exempt. The focus of the external audit is to provide an opinion on the fairness of financial statements for a particular period of time and at a particular point in time. So the thrust is on making sure that they are materially correct. I think one of the changes which has occurred is auditors now look for material fraud, but that doesn't necessarily mean that fraud isn't occurring. It just means that the auditors are trying to find material fraud, in other words, very large frauds. So in the context of auditors, they are not there to look into the detail of, for example, how expense accounts operate or should operate. They would not likely be there to try to find that level of detail. So the biggest myth is the assessment that when someone gives an audit opinion, somehow that it's perceived that it's free of any fraud, and that just isn't the case. For sure, the first thing is don't overreact, don't be emotional, get the facts, secure the evidence, and call your lawyer. Whether that's the municipality's in-house counsel or the external counsel, the important thing is to get the evidence to successfully prosecute. Certainly, but looking at it from a forensic accounting perspective, it's critical we get the facts and that we get them in as pristine as condition as possible. So make sure that you don't fire people without the proper protecting their rights and dealing with the appropriate legal counsel on how that should happen. Well, I guess the main thing that they shouldn't do is try to go it alone. That oftentimes that they assume that they can just roll up their sleeves and get to the bottom of it. This is particularly prevalent in this days of computer-based records. If you don't go out to computer records correctly and get the proper bitstream imaging, you have the potential for contaminating all the computer records, which could go back to haunt you when you try to take the case forward and comes to prosecution.